Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 14th of October. Quite a raucous day. Looking at that daily, we made new lows and turned around and moved all the way back up to the 23%. So, which is interesting because usually intraday, when you break your low, usually you're coming back to the primary break of that low. But this was quite a significant move and just representative of too many people in one side of the direction and easy to force a counter move within that. Uh, Signaling was already there. We had the magenta already above yellow, and white had crossed below. So when this started its action, um, really was clean on the turnaround, intraday at least. From a daily standpoint, still overall weakness. I mean, we're still looking at the orange here caught between red and cyan. Now, of course, the orange dipping going to be more on the bullish side. If that pivots up before we get a dip below the red, then back down we go. It's just that simple. You can see I don't have the NQ because I was having all sorts of difficulties with charts. This is what I get for some of them. It was an insane day trying to get TradeStation back up in gear. I don't know what happened. Regardless, it's finally back, so at least for the most part. The euro, nice spike off that for no good reason. The ECB made some ridiculous comments about how they were going to be serious about fighting inflation, even though it's higher than what it is in the US and their rates are much lower. That logic together doesn't really matter. It was a counter trade and effective, and you can see clearly a buy signal from that MBI reading, how sustainable. Now you can see right here where we're already caught between that DOC, where the orange is stuck here. You can already see it's flattened out. That's going to need to dip below, otherwise the euro is going to face another leg down. Um, just out of course. And this is just one of those elements that we just start to look for. They've got positive shakeout. So at this particular point, when you have positive shakeout, if it flips, that becomes exceedingly negative, and that's something I always look for. When we're getting a rebound effect, you really want to see that shakeout turn to the plus side, and then for a sustained move, you'll make higher and higher successive histogram highs. And from a gold standpoint, didn't really do anything despite all that activity. And the reality is, I mean, basically saying they haven't got inflation under control, and it's not even worth talking about in some aspects because obvious on one end if you're out there actually buying anything, and two, um, it's just semantics now because you're just playing with the tiniest of fractions. But at the end of the day, when your oil is at 90 and prices are just going to continue to be at a minimum where they've increased to, if not rise further, simply by the fact that it's going to cost increasingly more to do the same things you used to do. And that's just the reality of it. And so you're going to have a situation where wages are going to have to rise. And if they don't, um, it'll be interesting to see what happens on the employment side of it. Uh, TLT, of course, bonds are expecting rates to continue to move up as it made new low, uh, almost breaking below 99. What was that low officially? Yeah, it did 98.34 for rebounding, just like the overall market did. Bitcoin was interesting because it did break that 18, but just for the briefest of moments, and then popped back above 19.8. So this was something I've been talking about, the expectation that you have a much stronger potential for crypto move than maybe some people are thinking, simply because it's been such a disastrous year in general for long trades, at least. Those trading futures and that, it's been pretty sweet overall. For the 50K, having caught that bottom, took out somewhere in the middle range right there. You can see this beautiful turnaround from the histogram, move positive, remain there, got super elevated, actually went above that 25 level. It was a bit dangerous, but still, cyan under red on a 50K, still a buy. Even if you have up and down candles, doesn't really make much of a difference because you haven't seen anything significantly transition, and it just clearly indicates the strength on which that move took place. We had already seen it. The buy up took place prior to the open, and then we started getting the softness. Still had gold rising. Earliest indications when we really started to break down with cyan DOC, finally having caught up, having been cyan under red for pretty much the length of that run, and then that breakdown was significant when the read came through because it is a recognition that things just are out of control, just quite a bit out of control, at least from a political standpoint, because this really has not a whole lot to do with what we're seeing um, from a supply capability and stuff. It's just a limitation. And then throughout the day, we saw a continuation move that just built up higher and higher. Nothing significant. So the early buys began with the MBI, and then we just had to proceed to have a series of just uh, buys, slight dips, buys, and then it started to catch some real strength towards middle part of there when people realized that hey, there were more buyers than sellers out there, and that's when we got some really solid moves of cyan under red. Um, Even the breakdowns, though, I think were pretty healthy. They filled in quite a bit of range. Do we have positive extremes? They were starting in some cases, but filled back in. So they were pretty clean. And the only new run begins right about here with our original breakout at 3560 range. And if we follow along, it was a pretty long day as far as I'm just sad that I missed a lot of this because this is beautiful action. Um, Very clean from those moves. Easy when you get that cyan under red setup, and then some of these DOC spreads with the magenta under. Very clean, and that was the same thing in the breakdown. Even when we had that little pop right before the collapse, uh, magenta was still under yellow, so it was pretty clean from that aspect. And here we are in the post market. Nice little bump. Again, positive extremes right in the secondary candle. That would be the one I'm looking for, 3688 range. So it gives us a broader stroke of it. As always, though, I will, now that I have charts back up, be able to update you on the Skype chat. Trade, yeah, trade well. We'll talk again later.